She's a wonderful woman. I think she's a powerful force of good and positive energy.
But you ain't no Elon.
But she also brought us Dr. Oz and The Secret. We have to remember what this lady has done.
She has to be held accountable.
I forgive her, but I mean, cut the shit. The Secret is a particularly egregious offense.
What? You don't believe?
You don't believe? Believe?
I want to be rich. I am rich.
I imagine myself flying. I can fly. I will beat my wings until I take off.
And if the name Oprah conjures up images of wisdom, kindness, and freedom, automobiles prepare for that picture. Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly on a truth-seeking rampage, steamrolled Bruno's falling is like a ton of kettlebells. Megyn appears to have abruptly terminated her book club mid-sentence as she cuts through the media fairy dust and Oprah. What did they say that completely upended the talk show queen's meticulously planned empire? Hold on tight, this takedown is more entertaining than an Oprah couch confession with no commercial interruptions.
Used to love Oprah, like most of us who grew up when we did. And only now did I realize I've been getting spoon-fed propaganda from this woman for years. I always took her little setup packages as gospel. You know, before I was a reporter, I never even thought to question whether Oprah might be intentionally misleading me. Then last night, the dawn came and I was like, oh my God, she is not a reporter. She's a propaganda.
Imagine having 27 different spiritual advisors, a pile of kale smoothies, and jade eggs, and continuing to lack basic common sense. Welcome to the pinnacle of Oprah Winfrey's business, where any issue can be resolved with a quote from a vision board, and intuition takes the place of proof. In addition to raising doubts, Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly became a smoking crater of overhyped self-help rubbish.
Joe Rogan is calling out Oprah and Michelle Obama for hypocritical speeches at the DNC. Watch.
She's up there talking about income inequality. Like, hey, lady.
I know.
You're rich as like, how is that equal? And also, when Michelle Obama was saying, you know, I think she was saying her mother or grandmother was always suspicious of people who took more than they needed.
Yes.
Like, you are worth so much money.
Take more than they need. The Obamas have 4 mansions.
I mean, it's a bunch of rich people talking about rich.
Instead of striking out with fists, Roger arrived with a steel chair marked Logic, and Megyn Kelly trailed after. It was like throwing a TED Talk into a wood chipper when they used a flamethrower marked responsibility together. Let's start with Oprah's wonderful cult. For years, she has been the country's top-tier emotional GPS, but hers doesn't have a satellite connection. It just exclaims, "Believe in yourself." We all applauded as he drove straight into oncoming traffic, bought the books, and drank the pricey wellness Kool-Aid that was laced with moon water and pseudoscience.
Yeah.
It was one of the more I want to say disturbing, but it was confusing when that was taking hold with people. When I had friends that were telling me that The Secret is real and that they imagined they were going to fulfill these childhood dreams that they had about whatever, being a fucking astronaut, whatever it would be. There's a couple people that I knew that were trying to tell me that The Secret was going to be the thing and that they had a vision board and they had photographs, they put pictures up of the things that they wanted. Like them in front of large crowds and shit. And I'm like, oh boy.
Them in front of large crowds.
This is so not how it works.
However, America's favorite cage-fighting philosopher, Joe Rogan, took a close look. So no one's going to talk about how this is a high-functioning con game with glitter, she stated at Oprah's palace. And like she had been waiting her whole career to call out Kino's bullshit, Megyn Kelly jumped in headfirst, took off her earrings, and wore heels.
Did you see the Oprah interview?
No.
She's off the rails.
Yeah,
Off the rails.
I heard about it.
Into fucking wine mom country again.
Wow.
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes, I hear that.
Tim Dillon is the best. Tim Dillon's like, she's saying gypsy curses. What is she saying?
When was the last time Oprah actually spent time hanging out with a working class person in America? She's on her Montecito estate with one of the most beautiful mansions known to man. And that is why she did not follow up with Kamala Harris in response to that stupid gun question with, well, you're on camera saying that you favor mandatory gun buybacks. So how would that work? The Oprah enthusiasm worked when it was
And now, let's get into the land of nonsense. Remember Dr. Oz? Oprah's pet project. Her Franken-scientist. Handpicked, polished, and paraded until one day he crawled out of the lab and ran for office like a sentient Whole Foods aisle. Rogan practically levitated from disbelief. This is your guy, the man who sold raspberry ketones like they were stolen tech from Wakanda. And don't get us started on Dr. Phil, the bootcut messiah of bad advice. A man with a PhD in Oprah Said So. Megyn Kelly didn't flinch. She held up a mirror and said, "You created a daytime therapist whose legacy is yelling at teenagers, like it's Olympic sport." Oprah just nodded, sage-like. "Healing," she whispered. Rogan and Kelly didn't even need to raise their voices. They just calmly peeled back the layers. Beneath all the affirmations and self-love mantras was a billion-dollar machine, one that sells authenticity for $39 a bottle, lavender-scented and guilt-free. And the book club? Don't even. An empire of feel-good literature run by someone who once endorsed The Secret, a book that swears the universe is your personal Amazon Prime, just manifest harder. Rogan was practically frothing. You told cancer patients to vibe higher and gave that a national platform? That's not empowerment. That's delusion in hardcover.
Yeah, so let's think of when The Secret came out. I want to say that was like 2006-ish.
2004.
2006.
Nice.
Okay. So 12 years ago, she was 50 years old. How the fuck do you not know when you're 50 years old and worth $1 billion that that's not how it works?
That it's hocus pocus.
Yeah, it's not hocus pocus.
Yeah.
And to sell that to people is crazy. And that's a book that sold, I think I was reading, it sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 million copies.
Wow.
Is that what it says, yeah?
Jeez.
That's crazy.
Megyn didn't just raise an eyebrow, she raised the entire bar of journalism. Because here's the truth. Oprah sold Think Your Way Out of Poverty to people who needed policy, not positivity. And the real magic trick? Rebranding herself as America's moral compass. As if the woman who built a daytime empire on public breakdowns and feel-good fakery suddenly became the Dalai Lama of brunch. Rogan, eyes wide, couldn't believe the collective amnesia. Did we all forget this woman used to host I'm Married, my horse-level content in the 90s? He all but shouted. And then came the pièce de résistance. Oprah's evolution into a political influencer. Because nothing says I'm one of you like a billionaire sipping wine in her private vineyard, telling America which candidate feels right in her spirit. Rogan nearly combusted. Feels right? Like she's picking a senator the way most people pick throw pillows. And Megyn, arms crossed, voice like a scalpel, went straight for the jugular. Oprah has more wealth than the GDP of some countries, yet still plays the role of the humble empath. The only inflation she's familiar with is the markup on her $85 chai-scented candles. Yes, they're real. And just when you think they're finished, Rogan leans in like he's about to unlock the final boss level. Oprah doesn't think she's part of media bias, but her whole career, a masterclass in emotional manipulation, just wrapped in cashmere and lit with artisan wicks.
Trying to shove messaging down my throat of whatever she believes, not what's real. So you remember she did that kind of factual interview after the quote documentary of Michael Jackson?
Yes.
That was so dishonest.
Yes.
She did not raise any of those accusers' serious compromising facts when she had them right there. Maybe they're telling the truth, maybe they're not. But as a journalist, you have to at least ask. You know, you've got multiple lawsuits against his estate, sir. Might that be an incentive to lie? Didn't.
Kelly was nodding so hard, it looked like her head might launch into orbit. Oprah isn't just biased, she is the bias. A soft-lit, audience-clapping, sob story spectacle engineered by a woman who turned crying on cue into a billion-dollar industry. And don't even get them started on Oprah's spiritual squad. You've got Eckhart Tolle mumbling about presence, like a guy who forgot where he left his car, and Deepak Chopra dropping quotes so vague they could double as horoscopes. Rogan nearly fell out of his chair. This is enlightenment. Megyn looked ready to combust. Oprah has spent decades selling people inner peace like it's a bath bomb. Meanwhile, she's never once touched the policies that cause real suffering in the first place. And let's not kid ourselves. Her influence doesn't stop at TV ratings. She's in podcasts, docuseries, foundations. She's practically franchised mystic capitalism. Every time someone lights a scented candle and scribbles in a gratitude, journal while ignoring their overdue rent, Oprah gets another guest house added to her estate. Rogan just kept blinking, stunned. This woman made a fortune telling people to trust their gut, even when their gut was dead wrong. At some point, it's not intuition, it's just gas. And denial, wrapped in a cashmere throw.
You've got these accusations against him. You had a book that you were supposed to produce about Michael Jackson in the context of litigation where you were required to turn this stuff over, and you lied saying that you didn't have it. And you only got found out because Random House and these other publishers admitted you shopped it to them and turned over the metadata to Michael Jackson's estate. My point is simply, this one accuser was very compromised, and she had him right after the documentary. It aired on HBO right after. Didn't ask a question. Then she gets Meghan Markle. That was another propaganda.
And then came the weight loss saga. Oh, dear God. Kelly nearly snapped the sarcasm meter. You mean to tell us the same woman who spent decades preaching body positivity is now hawking weight loss drugs like they're part of her skincare routine? Did she discover self-love or just a better brand deal? Rogan was laughing so hard, he sounded like a chainsaw stuck in a rainstorm. So the message is, you're perfect just the way you are, until the money says otherwise. The crowd, metaphorically speaking, lost it. Because here's the truth. For all of Oprah's aura-soaked wisdom and branding brilliance, her empire is built on contradictions so big, they need their own zip code. She's the queen of authenticity, who's curated every moment of her public life since 1986. The advocate for truth, who once gave a platform to people claiming they cured cancer with green smoothies. America's moral compass, who somehow always ends up on the profitable side of every social movement. Rogan and Kelly didn't say anything radical. They just said what everyone else was too polite, too scared, or too branded to admit, loudly, without sweeteners, and with the grace of a flamethrower. Because for years, Oprah's floated above criticism like a wisdom fairy on a private jet. Question her? You're a hater. Dissect her brand? You're out of alignment. But Rogan and Kelly? They didn't align. They cut, exposed, and left a trail of motivational grift smoldering behind them.
Point is coming from the other way. She had the accusers there, and the accusers may or may not have had this experience with Michael Jackson.
Oh, you're talking about the HBO doc?
Yes. But she failed to bring up prior inconsistencies in their stories that really did compromise their stories. I don't know what happened.
I understand what you're saying.
So I'm just saying, as a journalist, which she purports to be,
right?
It was a complete fail.
Right.
And then she committed the same failure with Meghan Markle,
yes,
where she didn't press any of her claims of racism in the royal family. And now we have the ultimate culmination of her journalistic fail.
Kelly basically mic dropped with, at some point, you're not a media mogul. You're just a billionaire lifestyle blogger with cult status. And Rogan, he didn't miss a beat. She sold wellness like McDonald's sells salads. Looks healthy, till you read the ingredients. And that was the roast. No gotcha moment. No heated debate. Just two people standing in the glittery wreckage of an empire asking, how did we let this go on for so long? Because once you strip away the candles, the piano music, and the slow-motion tears, what's left is a billion-dollar empire built on vibes, with real-world consequences. And thanks to Rogan and Kelly, the vibe is officially off. Somewhere along the line, it stopped looking like a media powerhouse and started feeling like a luxury hallucination. Rogan and Kelly weren't just pointing fingers, they were peeling back layers like cheap wallpaper in a mansion of delusion. And underneath all the polished wood and vision board glitter, a full-blown self-help Ponzi scheme with candles. Oprah didn't just build a brand, she built a belief system. She's both profit and product line, and the hypocrisy, gourmet. Here's a woman who preaches authenticity while refusing to be photographed in lighting that isn't basically divine intervention. She sells vulnerability by the bundle, all while hidden behind PR so dense it makes the Pentagon look like a glass house. Rogan could hardly believe it. He just blinked and muttered, almost admiring, she's got more security around her image than Fort Knox has around gold.
Oprah didn't help by sort of saying it's cheating. What do you mean it's cheating? It's a drug that helps people control their appetite. How is that cheating? So she was probably on the wrong side of things when she was saying that. And now I think she was sort of forced to admit, because as you say, it's obvious. Somebody like Oprah who's constantly up and down with the weight and hasn't been on the skinnier side for a long time. And then suddenly, after this miracle drug comes out, like, we know. But she's still a spokesperson for Weight Watchers, and I guess she's going to still tell us that the point system is really what's behind the weight.
Kelly didn't blink. She knows spin when she sees it, and Oprah's spin game, elite. 1 minute she's barefoot in a meadow whispering about emotional healing. The next she's charging 5 figures for a retreat that's basically luxury group therapy with cucumber water. Spirituality, but make it sponsored. Then there's the performance. The tears, the lingering eye contact, the dramatic pauses that outlast most people's phone batteries. Rogan, ever the meat and potatoes truth junkie, couldn't hold back. Is this growth or just Oscar-worthy marketing? Because every special, every heartfelt confession, every aha moment is just another brick in the cathedral of self-worship disguised as public service. Oprah doesn't have fans, she has disciples. And the wildest part? They thank her for the privilege. Every ounce of manipulation is cloaked in velvet and gratitude. People cry just being near her, as if enlightenment comes with a gift bag and a promo code. Kelly, she went for the throat. You know what's worse than fake humility? Fake activism. 1 minute, Oprah's sobbing over injustice. The next, she's draped in a $12,000 coat on the cover of a magazine, talking about oppression from her vineyard. Her face didn't flinch, surgical, precise, a takedown with no wasted motion.
She first hit the scene in like the 1980s, and she was fresh out of Chicago. She was in Chicago for the launch of her national talk show. She was something electric and interesting and authentic, you know? I miss Fat Oprah. She was just genuine. Now this thin Ozempic Oprah has lost, along with the pounds, her heart, her sense of authenticity. And what we're getting these days is this cleansed, elite, billionaire version who wants to scrub the record.
Then came the pivot. Oprah's new era. Less book club, more ballot box. Because why stop at healing souls when you can shape elections? Rogan was stunned. She platformed Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, and now she's playing political kingmaker. That's like lighting a match, tossing it in your living room, and blaming the fire for burning down the house. And let's not forget her signature move, selective silence. When one of her experts spirals into public disgrace, or when the wellness advice sends people off a metaphysical cliff, Oprah vanishes. No statement, no accountability. Just a gentle retreat to the nearest yurt for some PR-approved reflection. But Rogan and Kelly didn't buy the silence. They called it what it is, strategic vanishing. Because Oprah's never been held to the same standard as the rest of the media machine. Why? Because she wrapped her empire in soft-spoken affirmations and designer empathy, emotional manipulation, but make it luxury. And for years, no one dared say it. The Empress has no ethical wardrobe until Rogan and Kelly lit the incense of accountability and watched the illusion turn to smoke. And now here we are, peeling back the layers of Oprah's empire like it's an overpriced onion with a wellness collab. And at the core, the raw truth, it was never about awakening you. It was always about elevating her.